Hey there all my gamers, Zach Morales Gaming here. You might be wondering why I'm doing this type of video, and the answer is, I like making Dead by Daylight videos, and they seem to do really well on the channel. Plus, I wanted to make this one. This is an in-depth tutorial on how to main or master the Shape, aka Michael Myers. I consider myself to be a master with Michael Myers. He's the only killer I main in Dead by Daylight, so I think I know what I'm talking about in this tutorial. This tutorial is going to contain 3 tiers. Tier 1 is gameplay. Tier 2 is add-ons and perks. Tier 3 is learning to master or main the Shape. So, starting off with gameplay, the first thing we need to address is his power and how it works. So obviously first, to master the Shape, you need to know what his power is. So I'm going to read out his power right now. Evil Within is the Shape's main power. Activating Evil Within allows him to see his prey clearly and build up evil by stalking them. Evil Within is a tier-based power and comes with 3 tiers, each having its own advantages and disadvantages. Evil Within 1. Tremendously decreased terror radius. Grants immunity to detection perks. Slightly decreased movement speed. Slightly decreased lunge range. Evil Within 2. Moderately decreased terror radius. Normal movement speed. Normal lunge range. Evil Within 3. Normal terror radius. Attacks do double damage, putting survivors into dying state upon hit. Lasts for 60 seconds without any add-ons. Increased vaulting speed. Increased lunge range. Survivors' white highlights changes to red when they are maxed out with Evil Within. So one of the main things to understand with the Shape is your power. Your power will be your most useful tool. Like with every killer, you almost can't win without their power. So we're going to take a look at Michael's power, and we're going to address how you can use it to your advantage. So using the Shape's Evil Within effectively comes in many ways. One good thing to know is that when you start the match, you will be at Tier 1. You will be tremendously slow, but you will have no terror radius, which comes in the advantage of using the Tier 1 Jump Scare Myers is what it's called. It's where you have no terror radius whatsoever, but you sneak around the map and you pull people off of objectives like generators, pallets, windows, and totems. This is also very bad though because your lunge speed is extremely slow and you are very slow yourself. I remember finding myself being able to almost outrun anybody once I'm in Tier 2, but when I was in Tier 1, I couldn't catch somebody that was running to a pallet across the map, and my lunge was just as worse. So unless you have the skill necessary or you are confident in your ability to have patience, then Tier 1 Jump Scare Myers will work for you. But for me, it does not. So here's explaining the powers and tiers. So what you need to know is what the survivors here. Believe it or not, knowing what the survivors here is very useful to your gameplay. So, one thing to know are your tiers. Your tiers are going to be the sole factor that they know who you are. Once they hear you tier up and they hear your music, they're going to know exactly who you are, and if they're a good survivor, they're going to immediately begin plans on how to juke you and how to play against you. So one thing to know is to stay calm and just put pressure back on them. What I'm going to do is show you a slide throw of all of his tiers and what happens, and once you find out, you know that they know who you are. Like I said, knowing what the survivors hear is very important to your playstyle, because once you tier up the first time, they're going to know who you are, but they won't know how close you are to gaining your tier 3. What they're looking for is that black instant tier 3 sound cue across the map. Once they hear that, they know, hey, he's in tier 3, he can one hit down survivors. We need to hide, go in closets, sprint burst across the map, urban evasion in the corners, etc. So you need to make sure your gameplay is on point, and you need to be smarter than them once you hit tier 3. Because you might think, okay, I hit tier 3, now it's just time to start hunting. No, they're going to know that you hit tier 3, and they're going to be working against you to make sure that you do not find them. Also, another thing to mention is if you are planning to run at tier 1 jump scare Myers, one thing you need to remember is your breathing. Believe it or not, in a match, in a trial, you will have breathing from your mask, from the killer, that survivors can hear. You know, like the Wraith has his crackling, the Trapper has his breathing, the Nurse has her cry when she teleports across the map. Well, if you're playing to tier 1 jump scare Myers, they're not going to hear your relative footsteps or your tier cues. What they are going to hear are you crossing over windows, breaking pallets, and you're breathing. Say you're coming up on someone on a generator and you're waiting for a good moment to strike. Well, if the survivors listen, they're going to hear your breathing behind them. So you need to remember that if you're going to strike tier 1 jump scare Myers, you need to be quick and fierce, but also stealth. Here's an example of the breathing. One thing to always remember is your tier 3. Your tier 3 will be the most useful asset at your gameplay. And trust me, you might think, okay, just popping my tier 3 and going after people, that's my plan. Well, no. That is a plan, but it's not a good plan. If you follow these tips on how to use tier 3, then you will succeed in getting someone on a hook, or maybe even more than one on a hook. So my tip for tier 3, number 1, is peeking your tier 3 to save it. Now what this means specifically is stalking a survivor up to the point of your tier 3 being able to be popped just by a single stalk on a survivor. I'm going to put an image on the screen of what I'm talking about. Now what this is good for is if you're looking for a group or you're trying to save your tier 3 for a moment you will need it. I used to run Michael Myers like this, but I found popping the tier immediately and hunting down people was much easier for my playstyle, but this could still work for you. What the idea is essentially is you stalk a survivor past tier 1, then you stalk a survivor up to tier 3, but you don't go to tier 3. You're at the very peak of tier 2, and you're ready to pop it, basically. And then you just hunt down survivors, hunt down one, hook them, and you just keep going until, say, the gates are powered, or until you find a group of 2 or more survivors. That's what I used to do. I used to peak my tier, and then I would find a group of survivors at a generator, and I only popped it when it was 2 or more survivors. This is a really good strategy that still works, but I don't do it, but it could very well work for you. That's my tip for number 1. So it seems that's the best information I can give you for gameplay on the Shape. We are now moving on to tier 2 add-ons and perks, and this is where I delve into all the add-ons that are good to run for the Shape and what builds are good to have on the Shape. Starting right off the bat, I'm going to explain Michael Myers' 3 trait perks that he comes with on purchase. Starting off with number 1, save the best for last, then number 2, play with your food, and then number 3, dying light. Save the best for last. You become obsessed with one survivor. Earn a token for each successful hit that is not dealt to the obsession. Each token grants a stackable 5% decreased cooldown on successful attacks. You can earn up to 8 tokens. Attacking your obsession will make you lose 4, 3, or 2 tokens. You can no longer gain tokens if your obsession is sacrificed or killed. Only 1 obsession per trial. Play with your food. You become obsessed with one survivor. Every time you chase your obsession and let them escape, you receive a token up to a maximum of 3 tokens. Each token increases your movement speed by 3, 4, or 5%. Each offensive action spends 1 token. Only 1 obsession per trial. Dying light. You become obsessed with one survivor. Your obsession's altruistic action is increased by 38, 44, or 50%. Once the obsession is killed or sacrificed, every other survivor gets a penalty of 19, 22, or 25% to repair, healing, and sabotage speed. Only 1 obsession per trial. Now, out of all of the Shape's 3 trait perks, I recommend that you only use Dying Light, because Play With Your Food sounds quite useless, and save the best for last, where you don't really have the patience and probably the chance to let your obsession go, because letting your obsession go could be letting the last generator get completed. So trust me, out of all the perks, you're gonna run Dying Light. So as far as his trait perks go, forget Play With Your Food, and forget save the best for last. Only use Dying Light. Now, what I can gather here is that if you're going to play Michael Myers, you're going to want perks that slow down the game, because you want to slow down the game long enough that allow you to tear up. Tearing up is your main power, and that's something you want to do at least more than once in a match. So you're going to want perks that slow down the match. So the perk setup that I've got here set up for a normal Michael Myers gameplay is Dying Light, Hex Ruin, Hex No One Escapes Death, and Franklin's Demise. Now, the reason why I chose these 4 perks is because they do exactly what you need when you are playing Michael Myers. Dying Light will choose a random character to be an obsession. If you can take that obsession and activate Dying Light around 3 or 4 generators, then that will slow down the game extremely. Combined with Hex Ruin, which is a Hex totem that spawns around the map, and Hex Ruin basically denies generators progression overall. So Dying Light combined with Hex Ruin is extremely overpowered. NOED is a nice just in case perk that you have in your slot to hit down survivors if they somehow get the gates open. And then Franklin's Demise is just a nice perk to have for people looping with med kits every time you hit them to heal out pallets, or flashlights that are just pissing you off, or instant generator fixes, brand new parts if you can catch them before they use it. That's why I chose Franklin's Demise. That is just an overall good perk run for Michael Myers if you're going to play normal, tier up, and everything like that. Now don't worry, I haven't forgotten about the Tier 1 Jumpscare Myers, because there is a different perk build for Tier 1 Jumpscare Myers. I realize there are plenty of builds for Tier 1 Jumpscare Myers, but this is my build, and I think this is what will work. My build for the Tier 1 Jumpscare Myers is Unnerving Presence, Hex Ruin, Agitation, and Unnerving Presence. So the follow-up reason why I chose these perks for a Tier 1 Jumpscare Myers is because Unnerving Presence is very good for D-Strike. If you're running a Tier 1 Jumpscare Myers and one of your survivors has D-Strike, Unnerving Presence at Tier 3 is really good because it slows down the skill check and makes it extremely small. When I say small, I mean very, very small. And there's a really high chance that your survivor with D-Strike will miss their D-Strike, and it's very useful. And it only works in a terror radius, and obviously if you're carrying somebody, they're going to be in your terror radius, so that it will activate, so you don't have to worry about that. And then Hex Ruin is just there to slow down the match, because remember, in Tier 1 Jumpscare Myers, your lunge is extremely slow and your speed is extremely slow. So you're going to be very slow across the map, and you're going to need something to slow down the generators while you're moving. And then Agitation is precisely for your speed. You're very slow in general for everything. You're very slow in actions, going through windows, picking up bodies, carrying bodies. So Agitation is there to fix the carrying bodies in case you want to go to the basement or you need to get to a hook. It's just there just in case to help you. And then Monitor and Abuse is straight up for Tier 1 Jumpscare Myers itself. You have no terror radius whatsoever when you're moving across the map. So it's very useful. Now it's time to move on to the add-ons for the shape. There's not much to discuss here, as the real add-ons that you'll need really only concern your stalking, your movement while stalking, and then your Tier 1 Jumpscare Myers. So easily, what I'm going to tell you right away is you are playing a normal Michael Myers, trying to tier up and move on with your Tier 3 as quick as you can. Easily, the best 2 add-ons you need to run are J. Myers Memorial and Memorial Flower. Both of them increase your rate at stalking normally. There is a J. Myers Diary, which only increases the stalking rate on the obsession, but that's one survivor. You want the J. Myers Memorial, which increases the stalking overall. Both the Memorial Flower and the J. Myers Memorial both increase stalking rate normally. Both of those combined, which they do stack, will seriously increase the speed and it takes to for you reach Evil Within 3. It's very, very quick. And then if you are running a tier 1 jump scare Myers, the add-ons you're going to want are Scratched Mirror and Boyfriend's Memo. Scratched Mirror allows you to see survivors that are, I believe, 32 meters away, but you cannot pass Evil Within 1. But that's the point, because Evil Within 1 you have no terror radius, so that's the point anyways. That's not really a loss. And then you want Boyfriend's Memo, which increases the lunge of Evil Within 1, because your lunge is extremely bad and short as Evil Within 1. So you're going to want Boyfriend's Memo to give you that extra edge, because that might give you exactly what you need. So those are the add-ons you're probably going to need when playing as Michael Myers. I'm not saying that the others are obsolete or they're useless. I'm just saying, me personally, I have a Prestige 3 Michael Myers, and I'm very, very skilled with him, and I definitely know my way around his perks and add-ons and how to play him. So take my word for it, all you really need are the tier 1 Jump Scare Myers add-ons, and then you need the J. Myers Memorial and the Memorial Flower for your normal tier stalking. Reaching the end here for tier 2, we are now moving on to tier 3, learning and mastering the shape. Mastering the shape can take lots and lots of time. So I'm here just to give you all of my tips and experiences as the shape, and how you can improve on my mistakes and maybe even fix your own if you're trying to learn the shape now. So I have been told on multiple occasions that a good tip to fight against Michael Myers is that when he reaches tier 3, if you have urban evasion, use that to your advantage, hide around walls, and move quickly. And I've heard a lot that in tier 3, people love to hide in closets. I didn't know if this was true, but at the same time, I had difficulty finding people when I would hit tier 3. So one match, I did hit tier 3, and I searched around corners and walls, and I found 2 people. Another match I was playing, I hit tier 3, and I searched 2 closets and found a Claudette and a Quentin that were hiding in the closet. So it seems that these survivors have made up their own kind of tips to combat against Michael Myers' tier 3. But when the Michael Myers learns against these kind of, say, advantages, he can really combat them. So my tip to you is that if you're playing in the higher ranks, or if you're going to begin playing Michael Myers, maybe not look in the lockers right away. Try and look for people first, but if you're, say, halfway down your tier 3 and you still haven't found anybody, definitely search the closets and look around the corners of the map, because most survivors will obviously try to avoid you when you hit tier 3. So definitely be looking around big areas, hiding, corners, everywhere that you think a survivor would disappear to, because that's going to be one of your main strong areas, is looking for the survivors once you hit tier 3. Another good tip to remember when playing Michael Myers is that when you're tiering up, also try to be putting pressure on the generators and the survivors. Don't try and go straight to tier 3. Yes, it may be a good idea, but remember the tips I told you. Maybe peek it and go for a group, or maybe don't even go for tier 3 right away. I remember a good tip to tell you is that if you're tiering up, don't make it the sole match for you to only hit tier 3 and that's the only time you'll hunt survivors. Because you have to remember, as much as it is quick to tier up, eventually survivors will get maxed out on Evil Within and you will not be able to stalk them anymore. If I'm correct, a normal match with Michael Myers with no add-ons, he's able to tier up maybe 8 times on all 4 survivors, each of them. So try to remember that when you hit tier 2, you're a normal killer. So try to do some hunting around tier 2. Don't make Evil Within 3 your sole goal. Otherwise, you're going to screw up and they're going to get all the generators, because they're just going to run around and go behind walls and just avoid your stalking. So try to put pressure on them around tier 2. Don't just make Evil Within your main goal. A good final tip to let you off on is don't be afraid of using Michael Myers. Obviously his playstyle is different and his power is obviously much more different, but treat him as a normal killer. If you have any skill in looping or stopping pallets or just putting pressure on the survivors, use that. Use that to your advantage and then use Michael's advantages with that. If you do that, you should be an unstoppable killer. When you enter Michael Myers, don't be afraid of his playstyle and think you'll do bad, because if you follow my tips and even think some of your own that work for you, and then just bring in some normal killer tips, you should be very good. You should be fine. So, you know, use your mind games on pallet loops, use your mind games in general. Make sure they don't, get all the generators behind your back, put pressure. Just use normal killer skills. Add that with Michael Myers' power and skills you have with him, and you should be unstoppable. that was my in-depth tutorial on how to main, master, and use the shape correctly and to the best of your advantage. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'd love to hear in the comments if this tutorial actually helped you use the shape in the best way possible. Thank you all so much for watching. All sources used in this video were from the Dead by Daylight wiki, so thanks to that source for me getting all my information. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay fresh, play fresh. Peace.